Hey everyone, welcome to the latest installment of MSP Business School. As always, I'm Brian Doyle.
I'm Tim McNeil.
And I'm Rob Rogers.
And we are always glad to see you, Rob Rogers.
Thank you, kind sir.
So it's been a little while since the three of us were together. I can't thank you guys enough for covering the playing field when I couldn't speak, which I know you guys loved for a whole set of different reasons.
Brian, it was hilarious. It was hilarious. I felt bad for you. I did. I really felt bad for you. But at the same time, watching you try and talk, but knowing you couldn't.
The one meeting that we had where we were actively just asking him question after question.
No, it was it was brutal. So for the listeners here, when we came back from IT Nation, because it's always the great time to have something like this happen is coming back from a show. And I got laryngitis and I was put on vocal rest for the first time in my life for 6 days. I determined during that vocal rest that there's 100 other things you could take away from me that would be a lot easier. But man, not being able to talk for 6 days really was hard. And my wife was going nuts because I would have to text her and she would say something to me and I'd have to text it back and it would take too long. And it was just back. I had no other, I couldn't talk. I had to write somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, laryngitis, when they put you on vocal rest, is no joke. One of the things that was actually helping is if I had a shake, it made my throat feel a little bit better. So I was going up to my local Dairy Queen a couple days along the way with my phone, holding up my order going, I can't speak. Yeah, it was pretty sad. I will say this. I hope it never happens again.
We're laughing with you.
But no, you can laugh at me on that one because it's just, you don't realize how much you communicate until you can't communicate. And for a guy that likes to communicate, man, that was a rough week.
I will say a shout out to Ken. Ken killed it for you, though.
No, Ken did a great job stepping in, taking on a bunch of our demos that we had to do coming back. I was like the man behind the curtain trying to text him with things, but the reality is I couldn't text fast enough to get past the real-time nature of those demos. So he would just go, yeah, those are good points for the next one. For those that don't know the Ken we're referring to, that's my partner, Ken Fernley, who is who is the other half of the yin and yang over at our place. And he took a frontline role. He rolled on some grenades for me. He was fantastic during that period. But I think he's happy too that I'm back.
I was just going to say to say that he's not a front-facing person doesn't really do that comment justice. So it was
incredibly cerebral, but very soft-spoken in the big picture of things, right?
Yep.
But good anyway, dude. So, so that's the latest update. I'm glad you guys were able to carry things forward. Again, as far as IT Nation goes, I think all three of us, I'll say that was a great experience. I'm sure you guys already covered off on that, so we won't go down that road. And let's get really into what we're here to talk about today. And, all of us have our approach to really hitting our goals in alignment, right? And while you need those goals plans, your big picture plan, maybe your 12-week plan, those kind of things, I've really been getting into a very, very simplistic mindset lately. And it's partially because of all the different pulls and pushes that each of us has on the daily. And I said, you know what? I got to just set up goals for the week and win the week, man. That's it. I need to come out of the week on a Friday feeling like I pushed the needle somehow. And, that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. What are some simple steps that you can take some of those big picture, hairy, audacious goals and break them down to something that's executable today, that stackable, that basically if you stack it up week upon week, you're going to hit that BHAG. How about yourselves, guys? Kind of what's your approach?
Yeah. Rob, do you want to start? Or do you want me to?
Sure. Yeah. So Tim and I have for a long time been on the mindset that there's two different types of goals that you want to accomplish in your week, right? You have your weekly goal, and that's related to your quarterly goal. So you have your rocks for the quarter, and we all do rocks, but the weekly goal is the chipping away at that quarterly rock. And so you want to try and have 3 tops. That's all you can have for the week. And you literally make yourself a spreadsheet that has Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday with all the things that you have to do on a daily. But on the very last column, there's a weekly goal. And you put in your top 3 things that you want to get done for that week. And that's strategy related. It's usually, for me, it's always strategy related. And if I can get done with Friday and those 3 things, that's it, 3 things are done, then I killed it. I did it. I accomplished my week. And that's how I like to do it.
No. And we I think we've talked on here in the past about how we subscribe pretty heavily to, I mean, first off, we're in the EOS shop, right? So we at OSR, we've used EOS for about 5 years at this point. Before that, we were really subscribed to a lot of the Rockefeller habits, one of which is doing morning huddles to make sure that everybody's accountable, not only on a weekly basis, but on a daily basis. And this goes back, I would say from our experience, this goes back to when we were still a lead generation company, right? I mean, we needed to win the week, but the only way to win the week was to win each day. So we broke it down even further. And to a certain extent, we still do. It's not as extreme anymore, but winning that week, it starts out by winning every day. I think one common issue that salespeople specifically have is if they fall behind in any given week, let's say they're out in the field and they're not doing the amount of prospecting calls that they normally do, they try and backload it on like a Thursday and Friday and make 100 calls for those days instead of just doing 35 to 50 or 60 per day, Monday through Friday, right? So it's very much about winning the week, but it's, it breaks down even further than that in my opinion.
See, what's funny there is that's kind of what got me thinking about, this concept of win the week. When I first came up, I was in a boiler room environment selling telecommunications, and we had literally weekly quotas. I've talked about this on the show. Friday's hero was Monday's zero, right?
That's right.
And that's how we lived. But to your point, Tim, they kind of reversed the approach on us. We weren't allowed to leave the office until we had, 5 appointments for that week. So we had to front load our calls on Monday and Tuesday because we had to get those appointments or we weren't allowed to leave. And we couldn't make our appointments till Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because you had to make sure you had your 5. And God forbid your one is at Tuesday at 9 and you couldn't go out. And I've been trying to apply that type of principle to what I'm doing as well. And probably what I'm doing is a hybrid of what you guys both talked about there. Because I straddle strategy and day-to-day in my role, I do have to, I'm still kind of the frontline owner-led salesperson for the organization, right? I have kind of 2 sets of win the week goals. I do have what you had, Rob. It's kind of what are 3 things from a business development, big picture strategy perspective that are going to drive the company forward. And I try to set those 3 items for the week. And then I've probably also got then designed 2 business recs for my developers, because what I do find is sometimes I fall behind on business recs on my developers, and then these guys are going, "What's next?" And I'm like, "I don't know," right? And I don't really mean I don't know. We've got plenty of things in the pipeline, but I haven't designed the business recs so they can actually execute and take after it. So it's 3 strategy items, 2 business recs, and then it's who are my top 3 targets I want to try to close this week, and how am I going to get it done? Period, end of conversation. And I'm trying to work on that kind of win the week approach. And there's no blended win, right? I can't be at 80% and go, this was pretty cool.
All right. So Brian, do that again. So go back and bullet point that. So you have 3 different goals. One is revenue based.
So I'm kind of putting it at the strategy layer, the product layer, and then the sales layer, right? Really when you break it down.
Yeah.
So at the strategy layer, I'll have 3 goals that we're trying to do for the organization, big picture, right? And that's usually stuff that Ken and I are working on, that we, that are the big picture things that we then cascade down to the team. But really it's more, what are 3 things that are going to help us build brand awareness, improve product, build, strategic things that are going to take us to the next level of the organization, right? And these are usually still a little bit tactical by nature, aligned to our bigger strategic plans, but things that need to be executed. Could be as simple as, hey, we need to go build 3 more ecosystem relationships with vendors we want to integrate with, but that might not take place for 2 months, right? So, it's getting those things together. Then step 2 is my product side. So, while Ken handles a good part of the technology evolution, I'm the MSP specialist in our team, right? I'm the security specialist. So if I don't define what the business requirement is for the developers, they can't execute. And even though we've got a number of things in the pipeline, I have found myself at various times over the last 3.5 years, not where my developers come into me going, what am I doing today? because he might have 4 projects that are on hold right now because he needs to get something from a vendor or something like that in order to go to the next step. And I'm like, I need to now, while on my project board, I need to make sure that there's a bucket of projects that any time they can go in, that's a 1-day task that they can take care of. So it's probably less about, what's in our pipeline, but there's a lot of 1-day tasks that sometimes I just don't get around to building the business requirement for, that they can tackle, when they finish a bigger task. So that was kind of step 2. I'm like, I got to do 2 simple task requirements a week, so they always have something they can pull off the project board. We operate in an agile Scrum format, so they can keep traction if they get blocked on something that they need to get feedback on. Okay. And then the last thing is looking at my pipeline and going, who's my closest to the dollar, and how am I going to get in front and close those, 3? I mean, obviously I want to close more than 3 being software, but to get at least 3 new labels into my billing this week. Time flies fast. Follow-up can be the toughest part, right? Every salesperson will say that, but you got to be diligent on that.
Yes.
So that's my win the week formula. It's 3, and I'm so sorry for that, but it's 3 strategic things. Haven't quite shook it yet. It's 3 strategic things that usually I'm partnering with my leadership team on to get that done, right?
Yep.
But I got to direct it, or I got to contribute to it. Part 2 is 2 product things to keep the train moving on the evolution of the VCIO toolbox, and then the final one is getting in front of those people to close. And my goal every week is to close at least 3 labels. I'd say coming back from the show now, it's probably 5 for the next 6 to 8 weeks too.
Yeah. And I would say, we're similar in the way that we set it up, right? We use different wording, different verbiage, but because we are EOS focused, and especially during our leadership meetings on every Wednesday morning when we have them, part of that is the rock review, making sure that we're up to date on our rocks, and making sure that any to-dos that come out of that meeting, at least some of them are associated with that rock, so that the ball is always moving forward, right? So that's a great example of how we use EOS in our favor to win the week and to move the ball forward, and just to get further along in those rocks on a day in and day out basis.
I mean, obviously, none of what we're talking about is evolutionary or new, but sometimes I think what it comes down to is we can stray from it, right? And that's really, one of the things that I'm trying to get better with myself, and train throughout our organization to follow that prescriptive, like you guys follow the EOS, making sure we're doing it. But it's really easy to stray, especially in times of big success, right? To go elsewhere.
That's when you stray the most. When you
always
get a bunch of wins in a row, it's easy to take your foot off the gas pedal a little bit.
Boom, and crash, right?
Yep. So, Brian, do you write them down?
Yeah, I've actually taken to this new concept of my action item pad. I'm going old school with it because, I've used every digital tool in the world, but the fact is it needs to be right in front of me for me to get to do it.
So Rob was, I don't know if it's going to come through. Rob was talking about how we literally have a grid, and it's Monday through Friday. It's primary up on top, primary/secondary in the middle, and secondary on the bottom, right?
And then on the right-hand side is the weekly.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
And
I used to try to manage
my
this.
Bible.
Yep.
I was like, I used to try to manage this stuff through different task managers, all this stuff, tried to get super sophisticated, but it always came back to the things I needed to do needed to be on paper right in front of me.
Right in front of me. And I guess that's our old school nature, especially like all 3 being sales guys, where like everything was pen, paper, Rolodex, phone books.
Expiration dates in our file card library separated by month, man.
Yep.
People will not be able to understand that are under the age of 40 what things that we had to do before computers were on everybody's desk all the time.
Yeah.
I caught the tail end of that at Northwestern Mutual when I started there, but they quickly evolved out of that after I started. So I had like a 6-month period where I did that, and I'm glad it ended.
So Brian, I got a question for you. So the listeners that are out there that are trying, maybe they're coming up with a system here and they're trying to find a way, how can I get out of the weeds on a weekly basis, or get my employee out of the weeds on a weekly basis? And I can't come up with some new system. Give me an idea that you can use to give to your employee that's in the weeds all the time, like you are right now. You are. I
Yeah.
would say you're one of the most people that I've seen in the weeds right now.
Well,
What do you tell your employee?
it's always short-term bursts, right? So first, take a step back, look at what's on your plate and what is really important, right? And what can be delegated. I mean, as you guys know, we have our sales maturity calls each week, right?
Yeah.
And I went in and said, "Hey, Tim, you and I can get together." And Ken stepped in and goes, "No, I can do that.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
are you going to take ownership of that,
Don't
right?"
be a dumbass. I got
So
Yeah.
the point is sometimes you just got to be willing, we all of us want to take command and take control and get things done, right? And do that. Just look and go to yourself, what's realistically important here? What's going to be the best use of my time? And is there anybody else I can deliver to? Now, again, if you're a young junior rep, you might not have something that you can deliver to, but think about some of the customer service problems that come in, right?
Yeah.
You can absolutely delegate that to the help desk teams, delegate that to your sales manager. Most sales managers want to take on those types of problems so they don't have to, so their reps aren't not doing what they're supposed to do, right?
Mhm.
So what I've really been taking to is each day, and I've been doing this for a long time, each day I flag a bunch of emails throughout the day that I think don't belong to me, or can be handled by somebody else better on my team, or just I'm not going to get to them fast enough, so I'm going to push them out. And then I put them to various people on my team. It might be going to my help desk. It might be going over to my partner. It might be going over to my VA. It really just depends on, on who's going to best, perform that duty. But I've gotten really good by just saying, okay, it's the end of the day. Let me look at all the emails I didn't get to today that were from customers. Okay, these 5 got to stay with me that I'm going to take care of. And these 3 I can give away. And unfortunately, this is part of my win the week methodology. I don't get to go to bed until they're off my plate.
Okay.
Because 1, I usually don't sleep if I don't do it. And 2, usually it just takes a real focused hour to maybe get those things done, where when I'm trying to do it throughout the day, I can't get it done. And that also means training your customer better, meaning you can't give everybody an immediate response, or the expectation is an immediate response. So, I have no problem letting something sit for a business day, because that's what most of the help desks I go to would do, right? If they sent me something. Now, if it's something mission critical and I see that, somebody's having a problem that really is, kind of out of service type thing, where they can't proceed to the next step, then I make sure I get that one moved over faster.
Well, and I think to that point, admittedly, this is not something that I subscribe to, but we have talked to and work with more and more people, that more and more MSPs specifically, that they only check their email 2 to 3 times a day.
Yep.
Whatever is in there during that hour time slot, or during that 30-minute time slot, whatever they can get to, they get to, right? And it kind of goes along with the philosophy of what you said. Not everything is a fire. And I think as business owners specifically, it's really easy to sit back and say, okay, one of my customers emailed me. I've got to email them back right now. Stop everything. And when that happens, that's when you get into the weeds, right? So there does have to be that expectation out of the gate that unless the house is burning down, do not expect to hear from me in either, whether it's 4 hours or 8 hours, or 4 business hours or 8 business hours, whatever that might be.
And it could also be training your customers too, right? They come to you for everything because you're their point of contact and they think you're going to be the one to solve it. My favorite thing is when I see something that really belongs at my help desk, I will then take that email, push it to support at VCIO Toolbox, put in the note basically saying, hey, Rob, the reason I'm sending this over is they will be able to get to it much faster than I ever will, as I'm on back-to-back meetings throughout the day. And now your customer starts realizing, I know Brian wants to help me, but I got to start thinking what should be going to support.
Yeah.
Because we all take on too much customer service related work that if we know the answer, we'll keep it, own it, and go back to the customer. And that's whether you're an MSP service person or a software guy, right?
Yeah. Totally agree. Well, fellas, we're coming up to the end of our episode this time. Before I kind of close it down, is there anything else you guys want to chat about real quick before we kind of move into the next phase?
No, I think we've hit everything I can put on this topic.
Yeah. I like, the only thing that I would like to add is, it's easy to say these things, right? But the hardest thing for me personally is like with Tim's comment with the the email thing and only checking it once a day. There is no way that I can do that. My control issues would never allow me to do that, and it's a problem. It's a real
No,
problem.
I'm
that
going to say
can't
that
do.
I would say from my seat, Rob, that's something you got to work on.
Yeah,
Just by nature, I've come to realize, look, I might be on 2-3 hours worth of meetings in a row. Obviously, I can't respond to any of those emails
Yeah.
during that period of time, and people don't seem to,
Yeah.
mind that. So it tells me there is you want to be responsive. Certainly, if somebody has an outage, you want to deal with that as quick as possible or something like that. But
Mhm.
realistically, they're not expecting that response back in 5 minutes. They
it's
enjoy it when
hard.
they get it
It's
back in 5
it's really
minutes.
hard. I made another monitor just for my email so I could look
See,
at
now
it.
there's your number one problem.
Yeah.
And we'll close on this.
It's true.
You're making it too easy to see it. My emails when I'm on meetings, I have gone the other way. I don't want to be distracted from the people that I'm speaking with because they are owed me
Yeah.
being attentive to them.
Mhm.
My phone gets turned upside down. I don't have email up on my screen. The only thing that stays on that could disrupt me is text, just because I got kids all over the United States. So in case one of them needs me, I want to make
Yeah.
sure I can see that. But
Yeah.
and text come up on my Mac. So that is it. And I've gotten, and that is something I've worked very hard in 2023 on, and it has made a world of difference. Now, sometimes I can be a little overwhelmed at 5 o'clock,
Mhm.
but that doesn't change the behavior. That's a short-term problem with a long-term gain if I stay the course.
Yeah, maybe if we do a 2024 goals in towards the end of the year, that'll be one of
That would
my
be an
rocks.
interesting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, to see if I can do that. I understand that it's a very bad habit, but it's hard to break. That's one of the ones that's hard
I
to
mean,
break.
you're enabling yourself by putting a monitor just for your email over in the corner that you can peruse at any time you're in a meeting.
Yeah,
And, I used to be accused of not always. There used to be a statement that when I was back working as an MSP, be here now.
Mm.
And I would be accused a lot of times of not be hearing now.
wow, that's a good phrase. That's
Yeah.
a good phrase. I should put that right above my email as I'm trying to break that habit.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
All right, guys. Well, Rob, I think it's time for you to take us home.
Yeah.
Well, fellas, this has been a good one. I love doing these where we come up with ideas for MSPs and owners or sales reps or anybody out there to kind of give them ideas on how they can be more efficient, and even admitted when you're not as efficient as you could be.
Oh, I think we had a couple moments of honesty on this call, right? And the reality is every single one of us has flaws. Every single one of us has habits that we know are bad, but we continue to do them because it's just the way we do them.
Yeah.
And I think this is, each one of us. Look, it doesn't matter how long you've been working out in the marketplace, how good you think you are at doing things. You can always do better. Somebody can always teach you something more. And hopefully you guys all learned something new there. And we'd love to hear from you. What are some of the tactics you're taking for better time management and efficiency? Because, man, I could use it still.
Yeah, you should. Yes,
I
sir.
agree.
All right, for everybody, just want to let everybody know that this episode will be up on mspbusinessschool.com and anywhere that you get your podcast, to include YouTube. So please head on over there, like, subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. It would help us out a lot. Fellas, until next time, I wish you guys all the best. Happy holidays. And Brian, you're killing it, man. Love you.
Hey, guys, thanks. We love you too, man. Lots of love for everybody around the holidays. Take care, guys.
All right, have a good one.